like and subscribe. Child-free women, what are the downsides to choosing this kind of life, if there are any? You limit your dating pool, but then so does any standard, so I don't see many downsides outside of dealing with rude people who refuse to accept some women don't want kids. It is definitely hard dating in your 30 years plus. Kids become so common. Yes. I had to block a long-time friend recently who was on this weird tier to convince me that I should have kids. I told her I had a miscarriage, and it was a bad experience, to which she replied, I had 7, and it was not a big deal. It was shocking, to say the least. She had never revealed this to me before. I did not know what to say, so I told her have a nice summer and blocked her. My mum has always asked my boyfriends whether they want to get married and have kids in front of me. I think she does it to trip me up, or see whether I have told my partner I don't want kids yet, which I always have, so it backfires on her every time. So in answer to your question, what are the downsides to being child-free? My answer is, realizing your mother is a massive knobhead. I laughed at your phrasing, realizing your mother is a massive knobhead. But then instantly stopped smiling, because it's sad she can't respect your choice. You know you better than anyone. Wishing you all the strength in the face of knobheadedness. Fatter so silly ever, your mother. If a parent is being introduced to a significant other, it is assumed by then that this is not your first date. And that you are serious with one another, so they should know the basics. Oof, that has got to be frustrating as hell. The undercutting is so unnecessary. If your friends have kids, that's all they talk about, and sometimes it's hard to participate in the conversation. I can relate to this. I'm married for 6 years now. Since second year of marriage I notice we mostly hang out with our single friends or childless couples. It is even hard to relate and talk to your own married and pregnant sisters. Yeah, I agree. Friendships become harder, because it becomes harder to relate to each other. It is not impossible, but both sides have to be invested in the friendship in order for it to work. It's definitely an interesting social dynamic. Most of my friends are child-free, but we do have a few with kids. They always have to show up late, or take off early and coordinate childcare with their spouse, which is something so foreign to me. So much this. We have virtual social time at work on Fridays before our team meetings. I'm the only CF, by choice, person, and the rest all have, or will be having kids. The topics are always centered around their kids. I never participate, and get annoyed that I even have to sit through it every Friday. I relate to this hard with coworkers even. The closest example I have are pets, and nieces/nephews, and I don't want to be insulting by comparing kids to animals. You have to plan a bit more in regards to your personal possessions. When you die, your belongings, heirlooms, journals, things that mean a lot to you will not mean much to anybody else, and therefore you will have to think about what happens to them and plan accordingly. As an attorney who specializes in estate planning, this was going to be my answer. People who have children often have a default of who they expect to inherit their estate, personal possessions, as well as monetary assets. I find that those without children often have to do more preparation for their estate plan. As an example, neither my girlfriend nor I currently have kids. I say currently as well as still discussing whether we want kids, so inheritance and estate planning is something each of us have discussed. Our biggest concern is who would take care of our pets. We are both crazy rescue people, so we have 10 animals who would need guardians. I'm watching my grandmother's 5 children navigate my grandmother's senescence. They are trying to balance her wishes and rights as a still somewhat conscious human being with the need to make sure she's physically safe, comfortable, and protected from scammers, since she's not able to do any of these things herself. It's been a very hard, very sad process. Someday my sister and I will do that for our own parents. I see that and I wonder, who's gonna do that for me? Who's gonna take my car keys away when I don't realize I can no longer drive safely? Who's gonna take my checkbook away when I can no longer remember that I've already sent way more money than I budgeted for to charities that send me distressing solicitation letters? Who's gonna come visit and make sure that my nursing home isn't abusing or neglecting me? I'm a loner, always have been, and I've always taken pride in not needing other people, never taking more than I give. But there comes a point, if you live long enough where you do need other people to look out for you. Without a tight connection to the younger generation, what happens to you? Yeah, for some of us, it's not that we give a what happens to our stuff when we are gone, it's that we don't want to leave a big burden for the living. When someone dies, their closest living people have to sort through all of their stuff, get rid of it, donate it, give it away, etc. Clean out their house, etc. And it's a huge pain generally. Also, it can be a painful process. I personally want to minimize that to the greatest extent possible. People who stigmatize you, or feel morally superior, because they have kids, you will never know what real love is. At least I'm contributing to the future of society, and not as selfish as you. My children are going to pay your rent someday. You are going to die alone with nobody to care about you. All real examples. I worry about parents who use that you don't know real love till you have a child bull. If that were true, I seriously worry about what sort of husk they were pre-parent. I think the "you'll never know real love" comment is my favorite. How many kids do you know who absolutely loathe their parents? I have several friends who have very little contact with their parents as adults, and who have very strained relationships with them. I am lucky and have a great relationship with my folks, but having a child is not a guarantee that they are going to like you, or love you, just because they share genetic material. Feel morally superior, because they have kids. Jokes on them, I don't care. You are going to die alone with nobody to care about you. My mom, when I told her, you will never know what real love is. Sad part about that one is, by their own logic, their own kids cannot truly love them. Yeah, this is the hardest part for me. And it shows up in stupid things too. I had this coworker, and I casually asked him what he did on his free time, and he was like, I don't have free time, I have a family. There's always these little malicious digs. Yup, my boss talks about how vacation days are most important for employees with children. I work a job with 10 days of vacation a year, plus a few national holidays, and I earn every last minute of them. My friends that are moms will sometimes take little passive-aggressive jabs at me, because they get jealous when I tell them something awesome that I've done/plan to do that isn't possible in their situation, because of their kids. Think solo international travel, financial freedom, career choices, etc. So I no longer share all of my accomplishments with my parenting friends, but I still have to hear about their parenting stuff. I have to leave my belongings to friends or my partner when I die. Which isn't really a problem, but I do worry about them going through personal things I would feel more comfortable with an adult child handling. Like decades worth of journals. Lastly, I actually adore the sense of accomplishment and bonding I experience when I get a teething baby to fall asleep. I also love the feeling of success I get when I see a child learn something because I help teach them, or to have a child trust me enough to go to me when they're hurt or need help. So I'm giving up some things I love experiencing too. None of these are valid reasons to reconsider my choice to be child-free though. I'm confident in that. This first one. The sensitivity you have to have when talking about your excellent, child-free life, because it feels to other people like bragging, even though it is not. Yet people with children do not typically censor their child-centered talk, because it is just assumed everyone wants to hear it. It is a double standard for sure. People with children often feel defensive and attacked so easily, which says more about them and how they feel about their choice than about the child-free person, as long as the child-free person is not actually being a jerk. And being told you're selfish for not wanting children. It does not compute. I wanna go into all the reasons why here, because I suspect we all know on this sub. But this one blows my mind every time. First one so much. I get a bit of a pass, since I am in a same-sex relationship and my friends understand how much harder it would be for us to have children. We both don't want them anyway. But I do have to kind of watch what I talk about around my friends and even family. Pre-COVID I would travel abroad pretty much every vacation, so 2 or 3 times a year, and often go on smaller trips over the weekend. My family members sometimes make snarky comments on social media like must be nice. Yeah, it is nice to have 2 full-time incomes and nothing keeping us from going anywhere, bruh. Parents or people you know asking when you're going to have kids. Like, not just once or twice, but repeatedly, even though the answer is always the same. This is the biggest one. I'm 35 and have said I don't want kids consistently since I was 11. My mom was in tears the other day on the phone because I still don't want them. Pretty sure she's been praying for an accident to happen. Although I told her once that I'd abort any accidents. Her reaction to that was violent. I have not told her that part again, but that's still the intent. You were up. My sister just gave birth 2 weeks ago and had a small birthday party last week with a few family members, all but my sister is vaccinated. I happily sat with my newest nephew talking about normal stuff when it started. AWW, you're so good with kids, why don't you have some? I snort, it a shame that your niece and nephews don't have other kids to play with here. 38 I snort, too old to get pregnant, said by my 39-year cousin who is currently pregnant. Etc. It just never seems to stop. They are so rude. This has been the only downside I have experienced, is that some people cannot accept it, and they just want to spend their time insulting you for not doing what they think you should. I have lost several friends over this, and had a rocky relationship with family from 23 to 30, until they finally accepted it, and realized they would not have me around at all, if they did not cut the. I am not a babysitter. I am not a college fund. I have heard some really nasty. And we live by a military base. The meanest of all the commentary I have had has come from military wives. We were showing my parents a new place. It's a rental, but a really cool place, so I said that if I were to buy an apartment in a few years, I'd love one with the same layout as this one. My mom said you'd need one more room though, even though she knows we're not having children. So I said yeah, I've always wanted a home office. And we laughed. So far, the only one I've found is that there's a certain type of person who just will not shut up about how not having kids is awful. It isn't, but they are. Not having kids is our full low vertical bar. Like good for the environment? Yes. Not having kids is like the single most environmentally friendly thing an individual can do short of murdering oil execs or something like that. I'm confident that these people are the most conflicted about parenthood, and they're really trying to convince themselves that parenthood is amazing. A classmate I was friendly with once angrily yelled at me about my decision to not have kids, all the typical "you'll die alone." I was taken aback by such a strong emotional response from such a casual acquaintance, but she had 5 kids, and had previously told me about how much she was struggling financially and physically. It was really obvious that her own parenting struggles were the real reason my personal decision struck a nerve. Public/federal/statutory holidays? I am the team member expected to be on duty, or on our low vertical bar purely, because I don't have a family lawyer. I guess at some point the generations before me just stopped being valid. My parents and siblings hate that I often cannot catch up, because I am holding the fort, while my colleagues who have familia so get to spend time with said families. I used to get this when I worked in retail. I had an older male coworker who thought I should work for him when I was scheduled off on Father's Day because he wanted to spend it with his kids. My response was funny *my father feels the same way. Sorry, I refuse to invalidate my free time for people who chose to bear children. That's been my experience too. My previous employer tried to guilt me into volunteering to staff after hours events by saying that if I didn't do it, they'd have to start asking people who had children and they didn't want to take away their family time. My boss even went so far as to say, "Isn't the point of not having children so you can devote more time to your career?" After that conversation I never volunteered for a single after hours event again, and left that job as soon as I could. Some places that are only really for families/children are fun. and I wish there were adult-only versions/events that I could go to. I love Disney parks. I really wish there were child-free days or something of that nature. Let the adults be kids for a day. In my experience, the worst part is people's reactions. Like some take it personally, some will say you'll change your mind or some sh \*t. Then there's also dating. There are people who hear your CF, but ignore it, and those who take it seriously, well, they're a little undateable, because you can't compromise on having children. So the amount of potential partners just decreases massively. I hate that people say, oh, one day you will change your mind. My mom says this all the time. If this is how I feel passionately, why would I change my mind? Imagine if someone was pregnant, and we said, oof, yeah, I'll change your mind about having that kid later on. How rude does that sound? People can be so mindless. Makes me think of a post I think I read on Reddit somewhere about this guy, who had a partner who did not want children. She was very upfront about it, and he had the whole you'll change your mind attitude about it. I think he ended up tricking her into getting pregnant, poking holes in condom, or throwing away her birth control of something absolutely horrible, I can't remember, and then absolutely guilt-tripped her out of having an abortion. She finally agreed to have the child, but made it clear that once the baby was born, she was out. She would pay child support, but wanted no visitation, and would not participate in any way whatsoever. Guy says sure, assuming she'll have some magical desire for motherhood once the kid is born. So she has the kid, pieces out, and this guy is just wailing about what a terrible mother she is. How could she do this? Parenthood is so hard, and he never gets any sleep, and has no life, and it's all her fault, and how can he get her to come back and help him with this kid? Everybody in the comments just destroyed him. She's my hero. Whenever they say that, ask them will they change their mind about their own kids. Smaller dating pool. Getting overlooked at work for more flexible hours, having to take on more work at work. Doctors having the power to tell you no regarding sterilization, when any abusive idiot can bring a new life into the world. I'm old enough to have started thinking about who will be taking me to my doctor's appointments when I'm 85. Who will help me shop, and who will be my last carer. My grandmother cared for my great-grandmother in her old age, and as she died. My mother cared for my grandmother in her old age, and as she died. I cared for my own mother in her old age, and as she died. My mill as well, for that matter. I have no one to care for me. That's just one aspect, but it's one that I do think about. This is really an interesting point. Especially when considering culture in which often the main carriage either is a family member and there is no affordable alternative. For me, it's the sadness it will cause our parents, who would be the absolute rockiest set of grandparents there ever were. Both single children, not planning on procreating. Really wish at least one of us had a sibling to sate the grandkids' lust. This was one of my biggest hang-ups before we finalized the decision with surgery. My partner pointed out that my parents didn't have to be blood related to kids to be good grandparents. They can volunteer, spend time with their friends' families, etc. Worry about what will happen when I'm older. I have no siblings, live a celibate life. Many people look forward to being retired, but I already dread it. Most of my time will be spent alone. I know that when I die nobody will miss me, so there's a big chance it'll be days or even weeks till my body is found. I feel like I should already make plans for the far future, as I have nobody to fall back on. I have the same worries. I'll never know what my DNA could create. The only one so far has been every other woman insisting she knows best for me, and I do, deep down, actually want to be a mum. They just know that my partner is good at keeping babies, and if I get a different man, I'll have my baby. It's not as easy to find new friends. If I had kids, I would be invited to more gatherings, I'd have sporting events to go to, etc. And you get to know the other parents at those places. Being childless means you're not usually invited to a kid's birthday party, and even your friends who have kids seem to not invite you to stuff simply because you're not bringing another child for their kids to play with. So you sometimes feel a bit pushed to the side. Unfortunately, there's no adult sandbox where you can bring a bucket and shovel and sit next to someone and say, "Wanna be my friend?" AWW, that sucks. My best friend is child free, and I 100% understand her choice. I still invite her to my kids' birthday parties because they love her and she loves them. Sometimes she comes to the party and sometimes she says, "Nah, I don't feel like being around all those kids." I'm like, "Me too, girl, me too. Lol." It can be very isolating. My friends in my age group, 30s, have kids now, and most of my friendships dwindled over the years because our lives were too different. It is also challenging in a workplace setting because kids are like the great equalizer, so when everyone is chatting about their kids I have nothing to contribute to the conversation. Also, being seen as an immature child. I feel guilty that I will deny my parents the opportunity to become grandparents because they want it so badly. I know they do. I'm their only child too. That's the biggest downside I can think of at this stage in my life. There's also the downside that I might fall for someone who wants kids in the future. Some people say they're fine without children, but change their minds. The woman I'm dating at the moment isn't interested, so I'm fine with that for now. The indescribable bond parents have with their children seems beautiful too. It must be wonderful to love someone to the moon and back, because they're your child. I'll also need to look into who I'm leaving, what to when I die. I can't just leave my things to my children. That's something to think about as time goes on. None of those downsides makes me feel pressured to change my mind about not wanting kids. I don't want children. Simple. My life is great without them. My parents understand and respect this. I'm upfront with partners about not wanting kids. My path is simply different to those who do want to have children. I'm an only child too, and I sympathize with you. People telling me I'll have kids, even when I've said countless times I don't want them, they just don't listen. It's frustrating. Yeah, most of my friends do that. "Oh, you don't want kids now. But wait a bit, you will." I'm tired of telling them no, I won't. You just haven't met the right person yet. This infuriates me. Dealing with societal and family pressures, on top of your own hormones. Having people wonder if there is something wrong with you for being unconventional. Or them just straight up not taking you seriously, like, "No, I'm not gonna change my mind. I don't care, you thought the same when you were my age." People telling me I'll regret it. That changed pretty quickly after about a month in lockdown. No superior feeling parents trying that on me since then. As a CF lady with a CF husband and supportive parents on both sides, the biggest downside for me has been not having anything in common with women in my peer group. I've tried many times to be friends with women with young children and it never works out, even though I treat their children like my nieces and nephews. I don't mind if my friends have kids, but they mind that I don't. Sometimes I think it's caused by jealousy, sometimes insecurity, sometimes it's just that I don't have that common bond. Outside of kids, I never have anything in common with women with children, which is most women my age, now that I'm 30. I have one friend I've been able to maintain. She has 2 boys, but they're teens. She's the only one that's never treated me any differently because of my CF status. Sometimes being low on friends is really hard. I'm very fortunate that my partner and family are so good to me. Without them, I'd be very alone. One bonus of not having many friends is it gives me a lot of time to be creative and make things. I've been able to collect so many making hobbies and I've been able to invest so much time in all of them. I'm to the point I can make most things I want or need now. People who get personally offended, or just simply won't accept, when a woman says she does not want children are used to vertical bar, so empty-headed and pathetic. Like, Jesus, worry about your own pitiful life, will you? It baffles me. seeing your friends turn from cool people into drones when they become parents. Feels like this would be true regardless of if you yourself had kids or not. People will tell you every opportunity they can to tell you what you are doing is wrong or selfish. There are some women who have allowed motherhood to be their personality. I have a coworker who always wax poetic about how she did not know what she did before kids, and I always feel bad for her. Lol, on one hand it is sad, on the other I am like, I can imagine your life was boring cause you don't do. Now even with a kid. That is about the only downside. Nobody to check up on you in the old PPL home to make sure you aren't getting mistreated. That's all. There is literally nothing else. Where I live, there are programs designed where people come into nursing homes to chat with the residents and make sure they are okay. They are specifically trained to handle complaints about abuse and neglect. Aged 30 and none so far. I like kids in small doses, so it makes it easier to enjoy time with my friends who have kids, because I can still connect with them. In turn, I am financially stable and can choose to do what I want whenever I want. For the most part, I'd be bankrupt, depressed, and living in an area that I don't enjoy if I had kids. Downside: conservative society constantly trying to prove to you that you're making the wrong choice. That would be annoying. For me, if you personally, you are the last in line for vacation time. You cannot usually take vacations during the school breaks. And now with Corona you are usually the one having to come in and work remotely. Because you don't have children, people assume you always have time and a lot of free time as well. People undermining your relationship and opinion, and people keep telling you that you would change your mind. Doctors refusing sterilization out of fear you would change your mind. I worked in hours for a bit, and, although completely illegal, have seen and no compensation changes for people with kids. I actually saw on a form breadwinner/dependents, indicating this person deserved more money. It was fed up. I live in a conservative state and they think laws don't apply here apparently. I don't work there anymore, and have no desire to whistle-blow. Edit. Always negotiate $. If you have qualifications, and talk about your family in vague terms if asked. They should never ask though. I think the fears: I'm worried I'll regret it when I'm older. I had a moment when my grandfather died, and I was so proud of the way my aunts, uncles, and cousins all came together. It's one hell of an impressive thing to lead your family for 70 plus years in such a way that it was entirely unacceptable to be judgmental, critical, or cast out any of our family. Gay, divorced, struggling with addiction, blended families. We just love one another, and that started with my grandparents. It was not acceptable to not love and be loving to one another. I'll never have that. I will not be on my deathbed, surrounded with love that I have created, nourished, guided, and watched flourish. Maybe my sisters, maybe my niece, maybe someday stepkids. But I will not teach the next generation to be kind, loving, and successful. Not being sure if I *would like having kids after all, but because I am not sure, that means I won't be having any until it is something I 100% want. No good things will come out of having a kid just in case I like parenthood, because if I *don't*, that is an unwanted child. A lot of my uncertainty over parenthood is the fear of being the sole and primary caregiver of a kid. I am definitely a keep on working, having a stay-at-home partner kind, but that is a much bigger conversation, and still requires me to really want kids before I do it. The uncertainty can leave me feeling left behind, but the certainty of knowing a kid should be 100% wanted and cared for above all else is stronger and more positive. The downside for me is that I am ending a line of mothers giving birth to future mothers, and because of my family history/ethnicity this matters a lot. I am my mother's only daughter, and my mother is her mother's only daughter, so I am breaking the chain and I'll be hurting some people I love's feelings by doing that. This is the one downside for me as well. My family is full of incredible women. Strong women, feminists, leaders, witches. I'm struggling with the fact that the line ends with me. Not enough to want kids though, but a little bit. Maintaining friendships with people once they have kids. They act like their kids will burden me, so they never want to hang out. I love kids. It is fun to play with little humans. I just don't want to have my own. But still they project their exhaustion onto me, and assume I do not want to hang out with them and their kids. Or let me babysit. I'm a great babysitter. Take a night off with your husband and chill out, and let someone else watch the kids. My aunt, very good friend of my mum, and my mentor, since I was a child, decided not to have kids. She was adamant of not wanting kids. She found boyfriends who also wished to remain childless. She lived a full fun life with many extras that my mother did not, e.g. relocate for a master's degree, all sorts of journeys and adventures, career moves. She regretted not having kids when she was 55. Unfortunately, I'm the main recipient of the I should have done differently, don't repeat my mistake, and she has been pressuring me to have a child, even if it was unwise. No stable job/income, no partner. So hard for me, because I understand her regret, but it's not as if I don't have kids I will regret it. I'm not in the generation of boomers. I have to actually fight for every single thing. I think what contributed to the regret is having her friends and family talking about their children's lives as adults. I think once she saw adults out of the kids, she thought she could have that. Me. Seriously confused. Mum wants me to have, aunt wants me to have, they both had their regrets with having or not having. I kind of relate to your aunt. I'm very much CF, but I think the only stage of motherhood I'd be into would be where my mom is now, with her kids all being independent adults. She gets to have fun being retired, but her kids visit all the time, because we're all close. My mom wants to travel with me, partly because I'm her only CF child, so I'm available and easy company. But it'd take so much to get to that point in parenthood, so ultimately I'm still opting out. My mom put in her dues for sure before all that. The constant bull from other people. Yeah, I'll change your mind one day. Kids are the reason we exist. Yeah, I'll never know unconditional love, blah blah blah. I get so sick of hearing it. Imagine how rude people would think you are if you went around and judged parents for making the decision to have kids. I do not understand why it is any different for parents to judge child-free people. I also get really tired of people assuming that I'm physically unable to have kids. I feel like I've had to constantly defend myself against all of the backlash. My boyfriend's mom pretty much told me my life would be meaningless if I did not have kids. She said this realizing he does not want kids either, but somehow as the woman I am the one to blame. My entire family gets ridiculously upset thinking about me not wanting kids. Friends I have had get upset with me about it. Even random people I barely know have gotten upset with me. I have no issue with people who want kids. It is just not for me. You've been visited by the ghost of a very important man. Pay your respects by liking and subscribing, and he'll grant you 3 weeks of good luck.